well, if Andy Murray's in an ice bath, then I need to be in an ice bath. The data on these is early, but it's also exciting. Not all recovery is physical. So is an ice bath good for recovery? It's a great question. And that's where we get this debate around things like ice baths. And you see, cold has become something that's enormously popular through everyone on any social media platform, anyone you've ever met at a dinner party. And that's for good reason. Cold is quite effective at managing mental health. It's quite effective at managing sleep. But it certainly seems to be effective at suppressing inflammation and managing, again, the recovery process in athletes. I think it was Andy Murray who was one of the first people we spotted in an ice bath after a 5-hour, 5-set thriller. And everyone thought, well, if Andy Murray's in an ice bath, then I need to be in an ice bath. But Andy Murray had played so much tennis and created so much muscle damage, and he might need to play tennis again the following day. He wanted to suppress that inflammatory signal, so he didn't want to get fitter from that tennis match. He wanted to suppress the benefit so he could be less sore to play optimally within 24, 36, 48 hours. So is an ice bath good for recovery? It's a great question. It depends what you're recovering from, and it depends what you want to achieve. We do know ice baths play a critical role in reducing post-exercise soreness. They reduce the blood flow to the area that's been working, and they reduce those inflammatory cells getting in there and causing the pain. But they might also blunt the benefit you're after. So for people looking to get big muscles, what we call hypertrophy work, there is a real jury's out moment on whether the ice bath would be a damage to that or something that's net neutral. When I'm looking at suppressing inflammation and managing that sweet spot between just enough, not too much, then we know massage still sits at the heart of inflammatory protocols, and it's generally been shown to reduce perceived soreness and our ability to perform tasks again. And what you'll see, because we know massage is good, is lots of modern technologies trying to replicate some of the impacts of massage, both in compression trousers and percussion massage guns. And the data on these is early, but it's also exciting and interesting. Compression trousers are those fancy trousers you see people wearing that whir and purr, and they're literally squeezing your legs and moving around all the metabolites of exercise. So all the waste product, all the debris from exercise, they're flushing that out and keeping circulation going. In many cases, they're mirroring what we might call active recovery, which is I've just finished playing a game of football. Did I cool down? Did I stretch? Did I walk for a period afterwards to flush it all out? Or did I finish the game, jump in the car, go home and jump in front of the TV? And this form of compression is showing, again, reduced perception of soreness and improved perception of recovery, which is exciting, as are these massage guns, which are a little bit more active. The trousers I just sit in, the massage gun I've got to do myself. And the data is also showing that these massage guns can be particularly effective at reducing injuries when they're used to pre-activate muscles before exertion. So it's a fascinating world where technology is meeting physiology, meeting product, meeting consumer understanding. So I'm in my optimal recovery modality. I've done my rehydration. I've done my refueling. I've made sure I'm going to sleep well tonight in the absence of caffeine and alcohol. I would possibly use cold, again, something around 10 to 15 degrees for, again, potentially 10 to 15 minutes to suppress unnecessary inflammation. I've got my recovery trousers on. I've used my percussion gun. Anything else I should be considering? Well, we're also seeing an increasing understanding of heat and light, and potentially the role of saunas and infrared therapies as part of a recovery toolkit also. Heat seems to keep the circulation flowing and falls into the same sort of category as an active recovery, me going for a walk or keeping my muscles pumping. Light's an interesting area. Infrared light and red light. Near infrared is a frequency that enters into the tissue layer and suppresses inflammation directly, and red light having a similar role on inflammation. So expect technologies that involve red lights and near infrared to boom in a marketplace of people who don't want to be sore and do want to train again. But not all recovery is physical. Lots of this protocol is for those, again, active individuals who are doing triathlons on their lunch break and training in the gym at the evening, and that's not most of us. 30% of the UK is getting less than 30 minutes of physical activity a week. That statistic tells us we don't need to be too focused on recovery for that audience, or do we? Well, if we think about recovery type 2, it is relevant to that group. Recovery part 2 is how do the rest of us get over a world that's constantly asking us to be switched on? How do I recover in the fact that everything I face today is telling me to be ready, to be, again, alert, to be anticipating? And that, over time, is exhausting. And recovery 2 is really about this idea of how does the modern person find stillness? How do they find the opportunity for their battery to not constantly be expending energy, but to recharge and to recoup? Now, actually, when we look at this recovery too, lots of the physical elements from the first part also apply. We also want to make sure we're fueled adequately. We need to be hydrated, and sleep must sit absolutely at the heart of it. But we might need to think a little bit also above the body into the head and look at, again, mental strategies for recovery. Your great-grandparents got something from drinking water that you probably don't. Over the last century, we've made water safer to drink, on the whole, but something has been lost in the process. Natural water sources once provided essential minerals that our bodies evolved with over thousands of years. Today's water, even premium bottled at source water, contains 78% fewer minerals than it did just a century ago. In fact, you'd have to drink 1.5 bathtubs to replenish the minerals that you lose in a litre of sweat. So if you think your water is hydrating you optimally, think again. Pure Sport, a company that I personally trust and use, solves this problem for high performers through their Ultra Electrolytes, a science-backed ratio of electrolytes in one single sachet. Optimize your hydration and leave the bath for bathing. Use our exclusive discount code EE10 at www.puresport.co for 10% off. What about fuel? What was really interesting was a study brought to my attention by a friend, Baz Moffat from the Well HQ, who talks a lot about women's sport and women's health. And she noted a study on the lionesses, which showed that almost all, I think all but one of the lionesses, were failing to get adequate carbohydrate in their post-performance meal. So that's our female football team. Why is that relevant? Well, there's a natural fear in modern culture about carbohydrate, its potential role in overeating and its potential role in me gaining unnecessary fat. And that, unfortunately, has a broader cultural penetration into our female audience. Now, why I want carbohydrate post-exercise is I've probably used a lot of my stored carbohydrate in performing that task. So if I'm thinking strategy number 2, refuel, I've got to reconcile that probably my main fuel during exercise, lasting 45 minutes, an hour or longer, is going to be the stored carbohydrate I keep in my muscles and my liver called glycogen. So I eat that piece of bread, it goes through my digestive system, stores into my muscle, I go for the long run, I use it. But I want to repack my muscles and my liver with that carbohydrate. And actually, we used to be really interested in the timing of post-exercise refueling, thinking the first 30 minutes or hour was absolutely critical. The tempo on that has eased off a little bit. We're not as concerned, but certainly the first 4 hours post some form of meaningful exertion is a great time to pack the nutrients back into your cells to enable you to combust energy again. How much carbohydrate? It's tricky. It sort of depends on how much work you did, how hard it was. And we see studies saying anything between maybe 3 and even 12 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of your body weight over that 4-hour period, with really about 1 gram per kilogram per hour being a sensible barometer. So if I'm a 100-kilogram male and I've done something for an hour and a half or 2 hours, I might want to get 100 grams of carbohydrate for the first 4 hours in that post-recovery window.